Welcome, everyone. Let's get started. I think we have a few more people coming in. Everybody, please take your seats. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the Wilson Center on this surprising and unexpectedly wintry day. So I'm glad you all made it through the sleet and the snow. Let's consider it an auspicious start to the winter and an auspicious welcome to our delegation from South Korea. So my name is Jean Lee. I am the director of the Hyundai Motor Korea Foundation Center for Korean History and Public Policy here at the Wilson Center. We are so proud to co-host the Korea Global Forum 2018 here in Washington, D.C., co-hosted by the Institute for Far Eastern Studies at Gyeongnam University, the University of North Korean Studies, and the Ministry of Unification of the Republic of Korea. Now, this is my first year in this role as director of the Korea Center at the Wilson Center, and I have to say, what a year, so dramatic. So many moments of promise and so many moments that have been perplexing. So at this moment, at this very important time as we watch to see how things will unfold at this momentous time in history, it is our honor to bring to you some South Koreans who have been at the absolute heart of negotiations with North Korea over the past 25 plus years. We are happy to have with us here today President Jae-Kyu Park. Now, he was a former unification minister who organized the first Inter-Korean Summit in 2000, which I covered as an AP reporter. And he has since been serving as president of Gyeongnam University in South Korea, founded IFES, the think tank that is helping us organize this event. I would like to welcome him to the stage to provide some remarks this morning.
Thank you, Jean Lee, for your good introduction about me. I cannot speak English like her, so you understand me. Senior Vice President Robert Litwak, Minister Jo Meng-kyun, distinguished participant and guest. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to everyone for attending the Washington leg of the 2018 Korea Global Forum. As she mentioned, jointly organized by the ROK Ministry of Unification, Gyeongnam University IFES, the University of North Korean Studies, and Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. I'd like to express my appreciation to the staff at the Wilson Center, including President Jane Allman. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us, for preparing this forum for success. I'd like to thank our keynote speaker, Minister of Unification, Jo Meng-kyun, former U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Policy, Ambassador Joseph Yoon, Acting U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Japan and Korea, Mark Knapper. We are good friends when he was working in Seoul. President of UNKS, former Korean ambassador to Washington, An Ho-young, and the distinguished Korean and American experts who are participating in this conference. As you all know, this conference takes place ahead of an anticipated second U.S.-North Korea summit. I think this is very significant. Last June in Singapore, at their historic summit, the U.S. and North Korea reached an agreement to ensure complete denuclearization of North Korea and the security of the regime. To realize this, it is important to establish mutual trust between the U.S. and North Korea. The forthcoming U.S.-North Korea summit must provide a turning point for establishing denuclearization and the peace system on the Korean Peninsula. Prominent U.S. nuclear expert Siegfried Heckel has emphasized that the full denuclearization of North Korea requires at least 15 years. In order for denuclearization to realize and peace system on the Korean Peninsula established, South Korea and the U.S. must solve the problems we face in close coordination and with perseverance. My pronunciation is wrong. Finally, to the Korean and the U.S. expert participating in this 2018 KGF Washington Forum, I hope you will bring forward constructive ideas for the complete denuclearization of North Korea and establishment of peace on the Korean Peninsula. Thank you. 감사합니다.
So I believe we have a video from Jane Harman, the president and CEO of the Wilson Center, who couldn't be here because of a trilateral commission meeting that she has to attend, but she considers many of our participants close friends of the Wilson Center, close friends of hers, and she wanted to welcome the Unification Minister.
Greetings to my many good friends. I had been looking forward to attending this event, but the date change conflicts with my longstanding commitment to the Trilateral Commission in San Francisco. As everyone in this audience knows, the Wilson Center prides itself on our commitment to Korea studies. Our focus includes history, culture, nuclear proliferation, North-South issues, especially reunification, and Korea's role in the region and relationship with the U.S. We have also partnered with many of you, and those partnerships are invaluable to us. Just a few weeks ago, I was in Seoul to meet with business and political leaders and to help introduce our conference on the 65th anniversary of the U.S.-South Korea Alliance, co-hosted by the Asan Institute. I saw many of you there. And today's forum comes at a critical time. Washington, Seoul, and Pyongyang are working together to fashion a roadmap for long-term peace on the peninsula. The agendas are not totally aligned, especially on the definition of denuclearization. But many of the important thought and political leaders are in this room, and this forum can move the important dialogue forward. For today's keynote speech, we are pleased to welcome Myung-Gyeon Cho, South Korea's Minister of Unification. Minister Cho has been a key architect of South Korea's push for reconciliation, and he recently led a South Korean delegation to visit North Korea. Following his keynote is a panel discussion and luncheon featuring diplomats and scholars from South Korea and the United States, including my longtime friends, former Ambassador Ho Young-an, who is now president of the University of North Korean Studies, and Ambassador Joseph Yun, former U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Policy. We're also joined by Mark Napper, Acting U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Japan and Korea, and our own Jean Lee, Director of the Wilson Center Hyundai Motor Korea Foundation Center. Thank you to the Institute for Far Eastern Studies of Kyungnam University, the University of North Korean Studies, and the South Korean Ministry of Unification for your collaboration on this event and efforts to make it a success. In closing, let me say how honored I was in 2012 to receive an honorary degree from Kyungnam University, a very, very special place. I also, as most of you know, take pride in being called Halmoni Pabo, crazy grandma, by my two part Korean, perfect grandchildren. Korea is in my heart, and long-lasting peace on the peninsula is finally more than a dream. Welcome to the Wilson Center. We are so pleased you are here.
I'd like to welcome Robert Litvak, our Senior Vice President and one of the world's preeminent experts on nuclear policy.
Well, thank you, Jean. I just wanted to briefly compliment President Harman's opening remarks, welcoming you all to the Wilson Center. We're honored to have this distinguished group here today to discuss this pressing set of issues. The Wilson Center is celebrating our 50th anniversary. We're hoping to avoid a midlife crisis, but we're turning 50. The center was created to memorialize our 28th president, Wilson, who was president of the United States and president of Princeton. We were created as a bridge between the academy and public policy. It's interesting, and perhaps a comment on the academy or academic life, that during World War I, when President Wilson was having nightmares, his nightmares were about faculty meetings at Princeton. We serve as a bridge, and our mission is to develop actionable ideas, not to tell policymakers what to do, but how they should think about an issue. And I think a special niche that the Wilson Center serves is bringing the world to Washington through our superb regional programs. There's a peer review of think tanks, and we were ranked by our peers as the #1 think tank in the world in regional programs. We have comprehensive geographical coverage, including one of our crown jewels, the Korea Center that Jean Lee leads. Through these programs, we bring the perspectives, not how Washington thinks about an issue looking out, but rather what is the perspective from outside looking in on the United States. So as Jean mentioned, I work on nuclear nonproliferation issues, whether it's the Iran nuclear case or the North Korean case. The question is sort of how does it view from Iran looking into America, not just the United States looking out. Today's meeting, which is part of a series we're so honored to be an institutional host for, this year's sponsoring institution for the Korea Global Forum. We're honored to partner with our distinguished institutional partners. Thank you, President Park, for your opening remarks. We have an ambitious agenda today, so I will conclude to let the conference get on with its work, but the idea is to develop actionable ideas in this current context where events are moving quickly. So with that, welcome, and I wish all of us a productive day.
It is my honor to introduce to you the Unification Minister of South Korea, Minister Cho Myung-kyun, who really has been so core to South Korea's strategy, President Moon Jae-in's strategy on how to engage the North Koreans. He has spent his career in the Ministry of Unification. I believe it said 28 years in your biography. He has been part of every single inter-Korean summit that has taken place on the Korean Peninsula, every inter-Korean exchange, including overseeing the opening of the Kaesong industrial complex, that factory park that was a centerpiece of inter-Korean exchange under previous administrations. So he really has had such a first-hand role in shaping inter-Korean policy over the past quarter century. And he has also been at all of those conversations between President Moon and the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, during this spectacularly dramatic year of diplomacy. And it is absolutely our honor to have him here with us today to share with us. It's very rare to have him speak publicly, so we recognize the significance of the opportunity to host him, to have him to share his insight, perhaps share some tidbits about that experience, and also to share with us where Korea is headed in the months and years to come. We will have some questions for you afterwards, so be prepared. I will just ask you to hold your questions until the Q&A afterward, and I would like to welcome Minister Cho to the podium.
예. 반갑습니다. 한국의 통일부 장관 조명균입니다. 전 세계 유일하게 한국에만 있는 통일부입니다. 오늘 한반도 국제포럼 미국 세미나에 참석해 주신 모든 분들을 진심으로 환영합니다.
Korea Global Forum. I'd like to extend my sincere appreciation to all the honorable guests who are here with us today, including Dr. Park Jae-gyu and President Jane Harman of the Woodrow Wilson Center. Back in 1998, I had the opportunity to study here in Washington, D.C. for about a year. And although 20 years have passed, I still have great memories of my time here. Since then, I have visited the United States several times, and I also have met frequently with visitors from the U.S. to exchange views. However, this is my first trip to the U.S. as the Minister of Unification. It's my first time in Washington, D.C. for the first time in 12 years. I think it is very meaningful to have this opportunity to explain my government's North Korea policy directly to some of America's most distinguished Korea experts. Furthermore, I believe that we will have a productive discussion today. And thank you for your interest in the Korean Peninsula issues. The Republic of Korea and the United States established diplomatic relations 136 years ago in 1882. 100 years ago, President Woodrow Wilson, in a speech before Congress, issued his 14 points or principles of peace. One of those points, the right to self-determination, was a pillar of hope and inspiration for Koreans and other people living under colonial domination at that time. During the Korean War, a line was forged in blood. Young Americans sacrificed their lives for a country that they did not know and for people whom they had never met. After the Second World War, with support and cooperation of the United States, liberated countries, including the Republic of Korea, were able to adopt liberal democracy and achieve high levels of economic growth. Today, the friendship between our two countries continues to deepen. In a short period, Korea has been able to reach global standards of democracy and human rights. The ROK-US alliance has prevented war on the Korean Peninsula and has provided stability for Northeast Asia. Now the alliance is expanding its role to the global stage. We are economic partners. President Moon and President Trump are determined to make our alliance greater than ever. And now, the ROK and the U.S. are walking together on a path for peace. Ladies and gentlemen, around this time last year, the situation on the Korean Peninsula was precarious. North Korea conducted a high-yield nuclear test and 15 ballistic missile tests. As a result, the UN Security Council has adopted strong sanctions against North Korea. In this context, inter-Korean dialogue and communication has stopped. The word war once again has entered public discourse. A year has passed since then, and there have been 3 inter-Korean summits and the historic US DPRK summit. For the first time, leaders of the two Koreas discussed specific measures and objectives to achieve complete denuclearization. For the first time in 70 years of hostility, the US and the DPRK have discussed denuclearization and security guarantees as part of a promise to establish a new relationship. Chairman Kim has ended the 2-track line of nuclear and economic development, the so-called Pyeongjin Line, which was declared in 2013, shortly after Kim Jong-un came into power. Now Chairman Kim says that he will dedicate all efforts to economic development. On the 25th of October, while participating in the International Security Forum, North Korea's Vice Minister of the People's Armed Forces emphasized the new strategic objective of North Korea is to develop the national economy and improve the quality of life for the North Korean people. Last September, for the first time in history, the President of the Republic of Korea gave an address to about 150,000 North Korean citizens during the Inter-Korean Summit in Pyongyang. Chairman Kim introduced President Moon, and President Moon gave his speech on denuclearization to a stadium full of North Korean people. North Koreans have heard there is a bright future ahead if North Korea follows through with denuclearization. Inter-Korean exchanges and cooperation now have restarted. The Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games were very successful, even though some people raised security concerns last year. The Inter-Korean Joint Liaison Office has opened to allow regular dialogue between the two Koreas, and a reunion of separated family members was held after having been suspended for 3 years. The two Koreas have taken steps to reduce military tensions. Last year, gunfire erupted in Panmunjom's joint security area, but the two sides have agreed to disarm the area. Now people can move freely in the joint security area when they visit Panmunjom. They are no longer restricted to the respective sides of the military demarcation. The line that dissects the joint security area. As of the 1st of November, the two Koreas have stopped hostile actions on the ground, sea, and airspace around the military demarcation line. Also, both sides are preparing to remove guard posts within the demilitarized zone area. Furthermore, both sides have begun excavation work to recover the remains of fallen soldiers from the Korean War. This is great progress considering the fact that the North Korean nuclear problem had worsened over the years and denuclearization negotiations have been stalled in deadlock. This improvement of the situation in the Korean Peninsula was possible because of the ROK-US alliance and the close coordination between the Republic of Korea and the United States.
미국의 트럼프 대통령을 제일 먼저 만나 동맹의 강화와 한반도 평화를 논의했습니다. 미국의 트럼프 대통령은 북핵 문제 해결에 정책의 최우선순위를 부여했습니다.
President Trump has made the North Korean nuclear issue a top priority, while maintaining a decisive and strong stance for denuclearization. President Trump has stated that he is prepared to help provide a bright future for North Korea if Pyongyang makes the right decision. He also has expressed his support for my government's effort to improve the inter-Korean relationship. The Republic of Korea and the United States have been decisive in their response to North Korea's nuclear development. We have been resolute, along with the international community, while maintaining our stance for the peaceful settlement of disputes through dialogue. Our strong bilateral alliance has supported diplomatic efforts in this process. Our current presidents have had 5 ROK-US summits and 18 telephone calls to establish confidence between them. Also, we have daily working level communications between government officials to coordinate policies. Based on our close coordination and the decisive actions of our presidents, we've had the historic US DPRK summit and 3 inter-Korean summits this year. However, negotiations for the denuclearization of North Korea are still a work in progress. There is a long way to go, and we have many tasks to solve. It is the common duty of the Republic of Korea and the United States to find a solution and develop it to a level so that it will be reversible. This year, so many things have happened in a short period of time. So many people have become used to this peaceful atmosphere. Last year, the Korean people faced the possibility of a crisis that could completely change our lives at any time. Thus, the complete denuclearization and a permanent peace on the Korean Peninsula is an earnest hope of Korean people and the top priority of my government. Ladies and gentlemen, the ROK, the US, and the DPRK should abide by the agreements between the leaderships of the three countries and implement the agreements to achieve complete denuclearization, establish a peace regime, and to develop new relations. It is too early to expect the United States and the DPRK to establish trust after 70 years of hostility. There is a huge gap in their perspectives, and they lack mutual understanding. Therefore, it is important to have patience and to continue dialogue so that the US and the DPRK can increase mutual understanding and build trust. Many experts have expressed their doubts regarding current negotiations. I think their skepticism is reasonable considering the references to past failures we've had in nuclear negotiations with North Korea. However, it is also true that we now have an opportunity to resolve the North Korean nuclear crisis. Most important of all is that leaders of the United States and the two Koreas have reconfirmed their goal of the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and they are leading the negotiation process. North Korea has decided to take a strategic path, focusing its efforts on economic development, and it is trying to show economic achievements to the people. Therefore, North Korea's opening and cooperation with the outside world are inevitable. North Korea will not be able to achieve its economic objectives unless it resolves the nuclear issue. Nevertheless, many people doubt the possibility of North Korea's denuclearization. What is more important is that North Korea's complete denuclearization is an objective that we must accomplish, and we should take advantage of this crucial opportunity rather than let it slip away. Furthermore, past failures offer great lessons that can lead to future success. High-level dialogue between the US and the DPRK have been postponed. However, I hope talks can be rescheduled soon to make some progress on practical actions North Korea can take for denuclearization and to improve the US-DPRK relationship. The Republic of Korea government will continue to support the denuclearization process by communicating with both the US and North Korea, just as we have done in the past, to keep the process on the right track.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Korean government is working to achieve denuclearization and to reduce tension between the two Koreas. After the Korean War, the two Koreas have faced 65 years of confrontation, and we are divided by a 155-mile-long military demarcation line with troops and heavy weapons concentrated on both sides of the 4-kilometer-wide demilitarized zone. And there were so like small conflicts can lead to very brutal wars. So the ongoing efforts to reduce intercurrent tension will help prevent war from the Korean Peninsula and contribute to sustainable peace in the region. Peace between the two Koreas will not be restricted to the Korean Peninsula, but it also will contribute to the stability of Northeast Asia. In the meantime, the Korean government is trying to establish a sound security posture. In order to enhance our capacity for national defense, the government has proposed a 8.2% increase in the defense budget and sent the proposal to the National Assembly. This represents the highest budget increase compared to other parts of the national budget. Last month marked the 50th anniversary of ROK-US Security Consultative Meeting, when both sides confirmed that the ROK-US alliance is stronger now than ever before. Also, during this 50th meeting, the two sides signed the Combined Defense Directive to ensure a strong ROK-US combined defense posture after wartime OPCON transition. The directive states that the USFK will remain in Korea even after wartime OPCON has been transferred from US to ROK. Under this strong foundation of the national security, the Korean government is striving to normalize the inter-Korean relationship. The reconciliation cooperation between the two Koreas will heal the pain of the 7-year separation, reunite a nation with common language and culture and a shared history of 5,000 years. Korea remains the world's only divided country, but our government must try to accomplish established the task of national reunification. At the end of the Cold War, this has been the policy of every Korean government. Current efforts to reduce inter-Korean military tension are grounded in the basic agreement signed by North and South in 1992. The non-aggression clauses in the basic agreement are finally being implemented after 26 years. The separated family issue is the biggest tragedy of the divided Korean nation. From 1985 to last August, there were 22 meetings of separated family members. However, there are still 56,000 people waiting to meet their family members. Their average age is 80 years old, and for the past 65 years, they have not been able to contact each other. The inter-Korean reconciliation is a struggle that takes considerable time and effort. In 1991, the two Koreans formed a unified team and participated in the World Table Tennis Championship. The Korean women's doubles team won the championship in the division. This year, Korea's unified women's ice hockey team participated in the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics to show the Olympic spirit of peace, friendship, and progress. We will form unified teams for more sports to participate in the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympics. And we are also planning to bid for the two Koreas co-hosting of the 2030 Summer Olympic Games. The two Koreas have recommenced a joint excavation project between historians in the North and South to search for the world's first metal type at the site of Goryeo Dynasty Palace in North that was built 1,100 years ago. This project has been suspended for the last 3 years. Also, to prepare for North Korea's denuclearization and the lifting the economic section, we are preparing joint survey on railways and roads to connect the Korean peninsula to Asian continent. Furthermore, until last year, inter-Korean communication had to go through Panmunjom, but now inter-Korean liaison office in Kaesong operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It is a fact that inter-Korean relations have been changing rapidly since January this year. I understand there are some critics arguing that the progress in inter-Korean relations has been way too fast, while there has been no progress in North Korea's denuclearization. It is natural to reunite something that was artificially separated. And for the past 10 years, almost all inter-Korean communication and exchanges were suspended. The situation now is similar to natural flow or river that was once blocked for a long time. In this process, the Korean government has a strong commitment to achieve our objective of complete denuclearization, and we are investing our efforts to ensure that the ongoing inter-Korean projects will contribute to the process of denuclearization. We are coordinating closely with the United States and the international community and within the framework of multilateral sanctions. Coordination with the United States and the international community have been fundamental for inter-Korean projects such as North Korea's participation in the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics and the reunion of the separated family members. While concluding inter-Korean military agreements, we have coordinated closely with the UN Command as well. When we look at inter-Korean agreements, we often use the phrase national autonomy. During the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit, President Roh Moo-hyun told Chairman Kim Jong-il that Korea should always try to achieve open autonomy. President Roh stressed that he could not pursue policies that contradict the international community when almost 80% of South Korea's economic growth depends on the international economy. Even today, when we communicate with North Korea, South Korea always emphasize the need for coordination with the international community. Until we see actual progress in the denuclearization, sanctions will be maintained. We have constantly emphasized that inter-Korea economic cooperation can only happen once there is significant progress in denuclearization. North Korean citizens have had to sacrifice a lot for the country to develop their nuclear weapons. The North Korean government has expressed its appreciation for the cooperation of the North Korean people in this process. And now, North Korea is focusing its efforts on economic development while promising to improve quality of life for the people. President Trump and President Moon promised to cooperate for a bright North Korean future after denuclearization. In order for us to motivate North Korea to make decisions and take actions for denuclearization, we must try to demonstrate the possibility of success of cooperation to North Korea. Of course, North Korea's action for denuclearization will be necessary for the cooperation to be implemented. Historically, progress in inter-Korean relations and denuclearization denuclearization has only been possible when there has been simultaneous progress in both. Improving interkorean relations has played a role in opening doors to nuclear negotiations and to interkorean summits and USDPRK summit. On the contrary, when progress on denuclearization has stalled, progress in the development of interkorean relations has been difficult to sustain as well. Based on such perspective, we will push for the positive cycle of developing interkorean relationship and the denuclearization without changing our fundamental position. Ladies and gentlemen, Korea and the United States are standing together, facing a challenge where no one has succeeded before. There will be a series of challenges as this is a new path. However, our alliance has surrounded past challenges by evolving and adapting to new developing needs. Our capacity is strong and our wisdom is flexible. The ROK-US alliance will use our strength and determination to overcome all of these challenges and to achieve a complete denuclearization and lasting peace. I'd like to ask all the experts and also Americans to share your wisdom and feelings regarding our great challenge for the future of peace and prosperity. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much.
네, 감사합니다.
Now, I just wanted to clarify that we have two microphones. Let's see, Haerin has one on that side of the room, and Byeongnam has one on that side of the room, so please keep an eye out. Please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. I would like for you to introduce yourselves, let us know who you are, what your affiliation is, current or former, and please keep your questions succinct. And I think we have plenty of time for Q&A, so let's be patient here. I'd like to thank the Unification Minister for joining us today. Certainly, how things look for us here in Washington may be very different from how things look for you in Seoul, and of course, how things look in Pyongyang. And so certainly one of the things that I would like for you to share, I hope you can, I'm happy for you to share with us today, is a little bit more also, I'm curious, the personal aspect for you as somebody who has been handling these issues for your entire career and has seen the ups and downs over the past 25 years. Now, I will share with you that, as I mentioned earlier, I covered the first Inter-Korean Summit as a journalist in 2000. I was also in the stadium in Australia when the two Korean teams walked in together under a unified flag for the first time. And I will never forget that moment when the entire stadium jumped up in a standing ovation. And it was a very moving moment. It felt that we were at the start, on the cusp of truly a different era of reconciliation. And in many ways, we were in 2000. That ushered in this era that we called the Sunshine Era of reconciliation and engagement. Are you going to do consecutive translation?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry, we'll let you go ahead.
네, 장관,
I know he's very good, but
장관님 먼저 이 자리에 함께해 주셔서 감사합니다. 저희가 워싱턴에서 이제 남북 관계에 대해서 느끼는 감정이 서울과도 다를 것이고 그리고 평양과도 다를 것이라 생각됩니다. 또한 오늘 장관님을 모시고서는 이제 단순히 저희 대한민국 정부의 정책뿐만이 아니라 장관님 개인적으로 느끼시는 감정과 앞으로 앞서서 25년 이상 계속해서 이 분야에 대해서 업무를 지속하셨던 전문성이 있으신 만큼 개인적으로 특히 어떻게 느끼시는지 공유해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 특히 저는 개인적으로 1차 남북 정상회담이 있었을 때 언론인으로 그 분야에 대해서 취재를 하였고 호주에서 첫 단일팀이 이제 참가를 하였을 때 거기서 열정적이고 감동적으로 진행되는 이제 경기들을 직접 보면서 이제 특별한 감정을 느꼈습니다. 그렇지만 오늘은 또 새로운 화해의 시대가 열리지 않았나 싶습니다. 햇볕 정책부터 이어졌던 시대가 오늘날은 또 새로운 화해의 장으로 만들어지고 이어지는 것 같습니다.
there was such a sense of hope in 2000 and so many projects that we saw unveiled during that period that followed, including some of the projects that you personally oversaw. And yet we've had so many ups and downs, including the closure of the Kaesong Factory Park. Of course, the development of North Korea's nuclear program to the point where it is truly a global threat. We saw the passing of the former leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-il, handing on power to a new leader, Kim Jong-un. And through all of this, I want to know, how have you maintained hope, or how has your hope perhaps been rekindled with the developments over the past year?
네, 저희가 2000년도부터 상당히 많은 희망을 가지고 이제 이 시대를 살아왔던 것 같습니다. 그렇지만 장관님께서도 잘 아시다시피 2000년도에 다양한 프로젝트가 진행이 되고 남북 협력이 진행되는 가운데서도 이제 계속해서 이제 다양한 제한 사항들이 있었고 이제 문제가 있었습니다. 개성공단은 운영을 시작하였지만 개성공단은 현재 폐쇄되어 있고 북한은 이제 핵무기를 개발하면서 전 세계에 대한 위협을 발휘하고 있었습니다. 또한 이제 김정일 위원장 사망 이후 김정은으로 정권이 이양되는 과정도 있었고 이러한 많은 것들이 있었던 가운데 장관님께서는 어떻게 개인적으로 이제 평화와 통일에 대한 희망을 이어가실 수 있었는지 좀 설명해 주시면 감사할 것 같습니다.
And I should add to that, how do we take into account the skepticism that we may have given the ups and downs over the past, it's not just 10 years, but over the past 25 years in our dealings with North Korea? And how do we square that with the hope that we will have lasting peace?
그리고 저희가 이제 앞서 있었던 10년 동안은 상당히 많은 비관론이 있었던 것 같습니다. 그리고 이제 이전에 있었던 25년의 남북 관계 발전에 있어서는 또 다양한 희망도 있었고 비관론이 있었던 것 같은데 새로운 시대를 저희가 이끌어 나가는 과정에서 이러한 평화와 이제 항구적인 이제 평화를 위해서 어떠한 희망을 가지고 있어야 될지요?
예. 지인님께서 아까 저 소개도 참 너무 잘해주셨고 또 지금 주신 첫 질문도 아주 좋은 질문을 해주셔서 감사드립니다.
First of all, thank you for the wonderful introduction of myself, and at the same time, thank you very much for the first question.
저는 올해 지난 7월 달부터 9월 달에 평양에서 열린 남북 정상회담 그리고 10월 달에 열린 행사 이렇게 세 차례 평양을 방문을 했습니다.
This year, I had a chance to visit North Korea 3 times, one in July, September, and October.
11년 만에 평양을 간 곳이었고요. 가서 지난 11년 동안 평양이 어떻게 변했는지를 방문할 때마다 아주 유심히 좀 지켜봤습니다.
And this was my first visit since 11 years ago when I had my last visit to Pyongyang. And when I visited Pyongyang this time, I had a chance to see how much Pyongyang has changed since this my last visit.
우리 진리 소장께서 이 서울의 분위기, 워싱턴의 분위기, 평양의 분위기 이런 말씀을 주셨는데 제가 볼 때 지금 이렇게 진행되고 있는 남북 관계의 변화, 한반도의 어떤 변화에 대해서 가장 좀 이렇게 그 희망과 그런 것을 갖고 지켜보는 것은 평양의 분위기가 아니었나 저는 그렇게 느꼈습니다.
So Director Jin Lee just had mentioned that people in Washington, Seoul, and Pyongyang might have different feeling about the ongoing inter-Korean exchange and cooperation. And I think the people who are most hopeful might be the people in Pyongyang.
저는 우리 지인님께서 소개해 주신 대로 30년 가까이 통일부에 근무하면서 북한 지역을 특히 평양 같은 경우는 수십 차례 이렇게 방문을 했었습니다. 그래서 나름대로 물론 북한에 갔었을 때 많은 분들이 지적하는 것처럼 북한은 보여주기 위한 그 방문객들에게 보여주기 위한 그런 어떤 연출을 한다 하는 점도 저 자신도 과거서부터 좀 많이 느껴왔던 경험을 갖고 있습니다.
And as Director Jin Lee has mentioned, I have served in this area for about 30 years. And then I had a chance to visit Pyongyang for a dozen times. And whenever I visit Pyongyang, something that I felt was that, as a lot of critics have mentioned, North Korea likes to show off its development and its country. So therefore, whenever I go there, there is a lot of things that they wanted to demonstrate to us.
그러한 제 자신의 경험을 바탕으로 이렇게 이번에 북한을 다시 11년 만에 가서 특히 지난 9월 19일 날 문재인 대통령께서 북한의 5일 경기장이라고 불리는 그 경기장에서 북한 주민 15만 평양 시민들에게 연설을 할 때
우리 평양 시민들이 어떤 표정일까 하는 것을 유심히 봤고 또 그것을 제 카메라로 이렇게 자세하게 담아와서 나중에 컴퓨터에서 모니터 화면으로 확대해서 북한 주민들의 표정들을 다시 한번 또 이렇게 제가 봤습니다.
And after these visits, I think there one thing that I would like to highlight is the visit that I had this September. On the 19th of September, President Moon visited North Korea, and then he addressed in front of the 150,000 North Korean citizens at the May 1st Stadium of Pyongyang. And during this address, we had a chance to take some of the photographs of the North Korean citizens who were listening to President Moon's address. And when I came back to South Korea, I downloaded these photographs and then started to enlarge the photo to see the facial expression of these North Korean people.
제가 이렇게 느낀 바로는 5.1 경기장에 왔던 북한 평양 시민들, 문재인 대통령의 연설을 듣는 평양 시민들의 모습은 과거에 제가 북한에 갔었을 때 봤던 평양 시민들의 표정하고 완전히 달랐습니다.
And one thing that I would like to highlight here is that the facial expression and the emotions that the North Korean citizens have shown in this stadium listening to President Moon was something that was really different from something that I felt in the past.
지금 한국에는 약 32,000여 명 이상의 북한 탈북민들, 북한 이탈 주민들이 와 있습니다.
At this point, we have about 32,000 North Korean refugees living within South Korea.
그분들은 지금도 상당 분들이 북쪽에 있는 가족들과 자기 아는 사람들과 연락을 주고받고 있습니다.
And many of them maintain contact and communication with their family and their acquaintance in North Korea.
그런 분들을 통해서도 북한의 일반 주민들이 문재인 대통령의 평양 방문과 그 연설이라든가 그런 것에 대해서 어떤 반응을 보이고 있는지를 저희가 한번 이렇게 들어봤습니다.
And we were able to hear from some of them on how the ordinary North Korean citizens feel about President Moon's visit to Pyongyang.
그런 것을 통해서도 북한 주민들이 지금 진행되고 있는 이런 남북 관계 또 한국 대통령이 평양 시민들에 준 그런 메시지에 대해서 상당히 기대를 갖고 있다라는 걸 저희가 확인할 수 있었습니다.
And one thing that we were able to find out was that North Korean citizens are really hopeful after seeing President Moon's address in Pyongyang.
그러한 그 북한의 일반 주민들, 북한 사회의 변화, 저는 이러한 부분들이 앞으로 우리가 북한 비핵화 문제를 해결해 나가는데 또 북한의 어떤 여러 가지 변화를 우리가 이렇게 도출해 나가는 데 있어서 상당히 중요한 요소가 될 거라고 생각을 합니다.
And I really think that this change in North Korean citizens' perception, as well as change in North Korean society, might be a great contributing factor for the North Korea's denuclearization process and changing the North Korea itself.
워싱턴의 분위기에 대해서도 잠깐 말씀드리겠습니다.
So let me share my perspective on how people in Washington feel about this inter-Korean exchange.
제가 아까 연설에서도 말씀드린 것처럼 98년도에 제가 워싱턴 DC에 1년 동안 와서 있었습니다.
And as I mentioned during my keynote speech, on 1998 I was able to visit Washington D.C. for about a year as a visiting fellow.
많은 분들이 기억하시겠습니다만 98년도에 북한의 영변 지하 핵시설 문제 때문에 그때도 상당히 한반도의 위기가 고조됐던 시기였습니다.
And as many of you remember, during 1998, there was a North Korean Yeonbyeon underground nuclear facility which created tension within Korean Peninsula.
또 한국은 IMF 직후였습니다. 그래서 한국의 어떤 안보, 경제 문제가 워싱턴 DC에서 상당한 관심을 끌었었습니다.
And as South Korea was undergoing IMF financial crisis, the security crisis and the economic crisis that South Korea was going through was a big issue that we had in Washington D.C.
제가 20년 만에 다시 이제 이런 그때 당시에 제가 여기서 우리 한반도 문제와 관련된 많은 세미나에 이렇게 참석도 하고 했습니다만 다시 20년 만에 와서 어제 도착했습니다만 오늘 와서 이 우드로 윌슨 센터에서 이렇게 우리 그 워싱턴 DC에 계시는 많은 전문가분들과 직접 이런 기회를 지금 갖고 있습니다.
And 20 years has passed since then. And during that time, I was able to participate in diverse seminars on the Korean Peninsula. And I feel really different nowadays as I was able to participate in this Woodrow Wilson Center's Korea Global Forum and get to see all the experts that are coming here today.
짧은 시간이기 때문에 제가 어떤 비교를 하고 평가하기는 조심스럽긴 합니다만 98년도보다 오히려 지금이 훨씬 더 그 어떤 관심의 그런 그 정도가 상당히 높은 것으로 저는 일단 느끼고 있습니다.
Since I just arrived here yesterday, it might be a little bit hesitant for me to make an assessment, but I think there has been more interest in Korean Peninsula issue compared to 20 years ago.
예. 그리고 이제 그 우리 서울의 분위기에 대해서도 잠깐 말씀드리겠습니다.
And let me briefly share how the people in Seoul feels.
우리 진리 소장께서는 지난 10년 동안 그 남북 관계가 거의 단절되어 있었고 또 최근 몇 년 동안에는 계속해서 이런 그 긴장이 고조된 상황에서 어떻게 우리 한국이 그 평화와 통일에 대한 희망을 계속 이렇게 그 생각했느냐는 점에 대해서 질문을 주셨기도 합니다.
So one question Director Lee has mentioned just now was that for the past 10 years, the two Koreas were under hostile relationship and there was increasing tension between two Koreas. And then she asked us how we were able to maintain hope for reconciliation.
여기 계신 많은 분들이 한국 또 서울을 많이 방문하는 기회가 있을 것이라고 생각을 합니다. 한국에 와서 보면 많은 분들이 이렇게 느끼실 수 있는 게 작년에 이렇게 전쟁의 위기가 막 고조된다고 느꼈을 때도 막상 와서 보면 별로 그런 게 느껴지지 않고 지금도 보게 되면 어떤 이런 남북관계 변화 이런 거에 대해서 뭐 특별히 서울의 어떤 분위기가 달라진 것 같지 않다라는 그런 느낌을 받으실 수도 있다고 생각을 합니다.
So I'm sure many of you had visited Seoul or will be visiting Seoul soon. But one thing that I would like to say is that even when we had the highest threat of war last year, the people in Seoul didn't really act as if there was a threat of war. The vibe in Seoul stayed as it was before.
그러나 우리 한국민들에게 이 평화, 전쟁은 절대 일어나서는 안 된다는 그런 두려움, 그리고 어떤 우리가 남북관계를 개선해서 이산가족 문제라든가 또 서로 긴밀하게 교류 협력하는 다시 하나가 되고자 하는 그런 통일에 대한 열망 이런 것들은 기본적으로 우리 한국민들에게는 어떤 유전자처럼 DNA처럼 이렇게 깔려 있습니다.
But of course, people in Korea, and especially the Korean citizens, do not want to see a war. They want to have a peace to be maintained in the Korean peninsula. And at the same time, it is inside the blood of the Korean people that we want to solve the issues like the separate family issues and at the same time, make sure that we have unification one day.
말하자면 어떤 일상화돼 있다고 할까요? 아주 그냥 우리가 뭐 늘 공기를 숨을 쉬면서 공기의 존재를 못 느끼듯이 그런 정도로 이 평화와 어떤 다시 남북 관계가 하나의 통합되는 통일로 가는 이런 것은 우리 한국인들한테는 일상화되어 있습니다.
So thinking about this peace and unification is like a daily routine for the Korean citizens. It is around us all the time. So the Korean people does realize the importance of having this peace and unification all the time.
그렇기 때문에 아까 말씀드린 것처럼 서울에 왔을 때 막상 한국에 왔을 때 한국민들의 어떤 그런 이런 남북관계 변화에 대한 이런 통일에 대한 전쟁의 위협에 대한 것이 드러나진 않지만 늘 항상 깔려 있습니다. 또 그렇기 때문에 지난 10년 동안 남북관계가 단절됐었고 군사적 긴장이 고조됐어도 저희는 늘 평화 통일에 대한 이런 갈망을 유지할 수가 있었습니다.
So as I've just mentioned, the Korean people always have their mind set on the unification issue and the war and the possibility of change in inter-Korean relationship. That is why even with the 10 years of tension and hostility, we were able to maintain hope as it is written within our blood.
다 아시는 대로 지난 10년간 남북관계는 사실상 거의 모든 것이 단절되어 있었습니다.
So as you know, everything has stopped between two Koreas for the past 10 years.
지난 10년 동안 남북관계가 계속해서 발전이 됐더라면 큰 아쉬움이 있습니다만 또 지난 10년 동안 우리 한국민들은 많은 것을 또 느끼고 배울 수 있었습니다.
Of course, if we had the 10 years of friendly relationship, many things might have been changed. But during this 10 years of hostility, we were able to learn a lot of lessons.
지난 2000년부터 2007년, 8년까지 진행됐던 남북 관계 어떤 부분을 더 우리가 보완하고 발전시켜 나가야 하는지 또 한미 동맹이 얼마만큼 또 우리한테 필요하고 중요한 것인지 국제사회와 협력하는 것이 얼마만큼 중요한 것인지 또 정부와 국민이 함께하는 것이 얼마만큼 중요한 것인지 그런 것들에 대해서 지난 10년 동안 한국은 정부 차원에서 민간 차원에서 많은 그 생각을 하는 기회였다고 생각을 합니다.
So for the past 10 years, we were able to look into the good relationship that we had between 2000 to 2007, and we were able to review some of the things that we have done right and some of the things that we have done wrong. So we identified the areas that we can actually make an improvement upon. At the same time, we have realized the importance of the ROC-US alliance, the blood alliance that protects our nation. At the same time, we were able to talk about some of the issues with the citizens to see how the government should deal with the citizens when it comes to unification policy and so on. So there has been a lot of active debate and discussion within the government at the same time with the citizens.
이런 지난 10년간의 그런 그 경험, 이것은 또 앞으로 우리가 북한 비핵화 문제, 한반도의 평화 정착, 남북 관계 발전 이런 것을 풀어나가는데 어떤 또 소중한 어떤 바탕이 될 것입니다.
So these 10 years of a valuable experience will greatly contribute to peace building within Korean Peninsula and at the same time help improve the inter-Korean relationship.
답변이 좀 길었습니다. 어떻게 제대로 답변이 되는지 모르겠습니다.
So I'm not sure whether this is a good enough answer, but it was a pretty long answer for me.
So I do want to give you the chance to ask questions. Hopefully you'll ask the burning questions that are in my mind, but I'm hoping you're asking them. I do have one question that I want to ask. When is Kim Jong-un coming to Seoul?
그럼 김정은은 서울에 답방을 언제 할까요?
예. 다 아시는 것처럼 지난 9월달 평양에서 열린 남북 정상회담에서 남북 정상은 김정은 위원장이 가까운 시일 내에 그리고 가능하다면 올해 안에 서울을 방문하는 것으로 합의를 한 바가 있습니다.
And as you all know, during September's Pyongyang summit, two leaders have agreed to have Chairman Kim to visit Seoul soon, and if possible, within this year.
예, 그러한 그 합의 사항에 대해서는 지금도 그대로 유효하고 가능하다고 생각을 합니다.
This agreement is still valid, and we can still push for this agreement.
물론 많은 분들이 김정은 위원장이 그 답방 서울에 오는 것 자체 그리고 또 오더라도 가까운 시일 내에 올 수 있을 것인가에 대해서 의문을 제기하고 있는 것이 사실입니다.
But of course, I do realize that there's a lot of people having a doubt whether Chairman Kim will actually be able to visit Seoul, and at the same time whether he'll be able to visit Seoul soon.
통상 과거에 우리 박재규 장관님께서 2000년 남북 정상회담을 통일부 장관으로서 준비를 하셨기 때문에 가장 잘 알고 계시리라 생각됩니다만 2007년에도 그랬고 남북 정상회담 같은 경우는 최소한 2달 이상 준비가 필요하다라는 것이 저희 기본적인 판단이었습니다.
So the President Park Jae-kyu, who used to serve as a Minister of Unification in 2000, I worked really hard to have the first Inter-Korean Summit. And with these experiences of Inter-Korean Summit and dialogue, one thing they would like to highlight is that we need at least 2 months of preparation before having a summit.
그러한 그 과거의 경험 기준으로 보자면 지금 남은 기간으로는 올해 연내 답방이 불가능하겠죠. 그런데 올해 3차례 남북 정상을 회담을 하면서 상황은 완전히 바뀌었습니다.
So based on this past experiences, since we only have less than 2 months for this year, we might not be able to have the summit this year. However, the 3 summits that we had in this year between two Koreas have changed this issue completely.
남과 북 정상 간에는 남북 정상회담을 아주 실용적으로 준비해서 하자라는 이미 그런 기본적인 합의가 되어 있습니다.
And President Moon and Chairman Kim had made an agreement that we want to make sure that the summit preparation is done in an efficient manner.
다 아시는 것처럼 지난 5월 26일 날 판문점에서 열렸던 올해 두 번째 남북 정상회담은 준비 기간이 하루도 안 됐습니다.
So as you know, the second summit that we had this year on the 26th of May in Panmunjom had less than a day of preparation.
판문점의 4월 27일 정상회담도 그랬고 9월 18일부터 열렸던 평양 정상회담도 아주 굉장히 짧은 기간 안에 준비가 되었었습니다.
And also the Panmunjom summit that we had on April and the Pyongyang summit that we had on September also had a short time of preparation.
그리고 남북한 간에는 그러한 정상회담을 포함해서 지금 많은 사항들을 협의할 수 있는 여러 창구들이 지금 현재 열려 있습니다.
And at this point, we have diverse channel of discussion between two Koreas to make sure that we can prepare for the Inter-Korean Summit.
그리고 김정은 위원장이 서울에 방문하는데 가장 큰 사람들이 어떤 장애로 생각하는 것은 우리 서울에 한국 국민들이 김정은 위원장을 방문을 반대하거나 굉장히 강하게 반대하는 그런 시위라든가 그런 것들이 있지 않을까. 그런 상황에서 과연 김정은 위원장이 서울에 올 수 있을까 하는 그런 문제를 제기하고 있습니다.
And I think the biggest concern that the critics have regarding Chairman Kim's visit to Seoul is that there's a lot of opposition who do not want to see Chairman Kim coming into South Korea. So there might be South Korean people having a protest against him.
지난 2월 8일 날 평창 동계올림픽이 개최될 때 다 아시는 것처럼 북한에서는 김영남 최고인민회의 상임위원장과 또 김정은 위원장의 여동생인 김여정 부부장이 서울을 방문했습니다.
And on the opening ceremony of Pyeongchang Olympic this year, on the 8th of February, we had two higher-level officers from North Korea coming down to Pyeongchang Olympic for the opening ceremony. We had Mr. Kim Young-nam, which was one of the highest-level officers in North Korea, and also time we had the Chairman Kim's sister coming down.
그때 그 김영남 상임위원장, 김여정 부부장 일행은 서울에 머무르면서 서울과 평창을 여러 차례 이렇게 왔다 갔다 했습니다. 그때 그 기차역이라든가 길거리에는 한쪽에서는 환영하는 또 한쪽에서는 방문을 반대하는 시위가 동시에 열렸었습니다.
And when we had these people coming down to South Korea, they stationed in Seoul and they traveled to Pyeongchang several times during their stay. And during the time, we were able to see some of the people welcoming them. At the same time, there was protesters on the other side.
그때 그 방문을 통해서 그 북한에서 온 김영남 상임위원장과 김여정 부부장도 우리 한국 사회를 좀 더 이해할 수 있는 기회가 되었고 또 우리 한국 정부로서도 북한의 그런 고위층이 우리 서울을 방문해도 우리 한국의 국민들께서 상당히 현명하게 지혜롭게 잘 대처를 해주신다라는 걸 확인할 수 있었습니다.
And during this visit, Mr. Kim Young-nam and Ms. Kim Yo-jong were able to see the response from the South Korean people. And during the time, we had protesters and the people who are welcoming them. And even when we have Chairman Kim, we will see something similar. But the wisdom of the Korean people will show how will support the successful hosting of the Chairman Kim here.
어쨌든 그 김정일 2000년 정상회담 때부터 김정일 그 위원장의 서울 방문은 계속되는 남북한 관계의 큰 장벽과 같은 것이었습니다. 넘어야 될 허들이었습니다. 그래서 그것을 한번 김정은 위원장이 와서 서울에 와서 그거를 넘는 것은 그 벽을 허무는 것은 남북 관계가 다시 한번 또 이렇게 새로운 역사를 만들 수 있는 중요한 계기가 될 수 있을 것으로 생각을 합니다.
Since the first summit between two Koreas on 2000, the Chairman Kim Jong-il's visit to South Seoul and South Korea was one thing that we wanted to accomplish, but it was one of something that always faced a glass ceiling or a war. So breaking this wall or glass ceiling will bring a significant improvement within the inter-Korean relationship, and this will bring a new breakthrough in the history.
또한 북한의 비핵화를 우리가 더 촉진하기 위해서 지금 현재 두 번째 미국과 북한 간의 정상회담이 이제 협의가 되고 있는데 그러한 것과 함께 남북 정상회담이 올해 연내 또는 가까운 시일 내에 열린다면 또 역시 미국과 북한 간의 정상회담, 북한 비핵화 문제를 해결해 나가는 데도 또 중요한 계기가 될 수 있을 것으로 생각을 하고 있습니다.
And at the same time, there is an ongoing consultation between DPRK and U.S. for the preparation of the second summit between them to discuss issues concerning the denuclearization of North Korea. So in this preparation period, if we were to have the fourth summit between two Koreas within this year, we might be able to contribute to this effort of preparation between DPRK and U.S. as well.
다시 압축해서 말씀드리자면 김정은 위원장의 서울 방문은 남북이 합의한 사항이고 또 그것을 이행하는 것이 가능하고 또 그렇게 이행하는 것이 필요하다 이렇게 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다.
So in summary, the Chairman Kim's visit to Seoul and South Korea is something that we agreed on, something that we can implement, and something that is possible.
Okay, so journalists will need to perhaps put their Christmas plans on hold. We may have another summit in Seoul in December, if not in November. So we have do we have any questions out in the audience? Okay, we've got a question up here in the front. Please let us know who you are.
Thank you so much. Chris Nelson, I do the Daily Nelson Report, and this is a topic of enormous interest here in D.C., so thank you so much for your presentation. It was very clear. You just mentioned the possibility that your work can help reconcile some of the disagreements between the U.S. side and the North Korean side on denuclearization. What is your answer to those in both the White House and the expert community who worry that the sheer momentum for for peace, for good relations, for family reconciliation, makes it increasingly unlikely that Kim Jong-un is going to compromise sufficiently with the U.S. that we will ever get a verifiable denuclearization, especially a serious declaration of nuclear assets rather than just a list. How can we reconcile that concern that the momentum, the hope, totally understandable, makes what we're worried about, the strategic missile and weapons issues, really impossible to resolve? Thank you so much.
네, 장관님 먼저 지금 저희에게 이제 간략하고 그리고 명확하게 많은 내용에 대해 설명해 주신 데에 대해서 감사합니다. 저희가 질문드리고 싶은 부분은 현재 장관님께서 마지막에 말씀하셨던 부분 중에 미국과 북한 간의 비핵화 협상 과정을 이제 남북 관계를 통해서 지원을 하고 이제 해결을 해 나간다라는 말씀을 하셨습니다. 그렇지만 저희가 워싱턴에서 되게 느끼기로는 이제 백악관과 이제 다양한 전문가 분들이 많이 걱정을 하시는 게 지금 남북 간의 이런 평화 무드와 그리고 이제 김정은 위원장과 이제 다양한 일들이 일어나고 이제 이산가족 상봉 등이 일어나면서 이런 희망적인 그리고 이제 화해와 평화를 위한 과정이 진행되는 가운데 비핵화가 오히려 더 어려워지지 않을까라는 걱정을 하는 분들이 있습니다. 한쪽에서는 되게 희망적인 일들이 일어나고 있는 가운데에서 김정은 위원장은 전략 자산들과 핵무기에 대한 포기를 조금 더 늦추지 않을까, 혹은 이런 게 필요 없다고 생각하지 않을까라고 걱정을 할 수 있을 것 같은데 여기에 대한 장관님의 생각을 좀 듣고 싶습니다.
예. 좋은 질문을 해주셔서 감사드립니다. 어쩌면 지금 가장 많이 워싱턴에서도 그렇고 우리 서울에서도 가장 많이 제기되고 있는 가장 기본적인 그 질문, 의문이 아닌가 이렇게 생각이 됩니다.
Thank you very much for the question. I think that question is something that people are really worried about within Washington D.C. as well as Seoul.
예, 그 질문에서 지적해 주신 것처럼 또 제가 아까 그 기조연설에서도 말씀드린 것처럼 남북 관계가 올해 지난 10개월 동안 굉장히 많은 일들이 빠르게 진행되어 온 것이 사실입니다. 그리고 그러한 남북 관계가 너무 빠르게 진행되는 것이 아니냐. 또 상대적으로 이 남북 관계 진전에 비해서 북한의 비핵화의 진전은 너무 더딘 것이 아니냐. 그리고 이렇게 상대적으로 빠른 남북 관계가 이렇게 진전되는 것이 북한의 비핵화 이런 노력에 오히려 좀 이렇게 부정적으로 작용하는 것이 아니냐 하는 우려가 제기되고 있는 것이 사실입니다.
So as you have raised a concern, and as I mentioned during my keynote speech, there has been a lot of issues that has happened between two Koreas for the past 10 months. Then there is a concern and criticism stating that the inter-Korean relationship and the development of this exchange has been going way faster than the North Korea's denuclearization process. And we do understand that there is a criticism going on to this, stating that this inter-Korean relationship may not contribute to the denuclearization process in a positive manner, but rather work as an obstacle.
이 문제를 설명하기 위해서는 우선 북한의 현재 입장, 김정은 위원장의 입장 상황을 좀 설명드리는 것이 필요할 것 같습니다.
So in order to answer this question, I think we first need to explain the stance and the perception that the chairman Kim Jong-un has on this issue.
올해 이제 남북 대화가 진행되고 남북 정상회담이 이루어지고 하는 과정에서 김정은 위원장을 저희가 직접 만나서 대화도 하면서 느끼고 또 보고 판단한 바로는 김정은 위원장은 기본적으로 이 북한을 좀 제대로 된 나라로 만들어야 되겠다. 경제적으로 좀 발전하고 북한 주민들도 삶의 질을 향상시켜서 또 국제적으로도 좀 조롱받지 않는, 비웃음 사지 않는 좀 제대로 대접받는 나라로 만들어야 되겠다라는 그런 강한 의지를 보이고 있습니다.
So something that we have felt through the series of summits that happened this year is that Chairman Kim Jong-un really wants to normalize the PRK. He wants to see an economic development, and he wants to see a quality of life for the North Korean civilians to go up. And at the same time, he wants to be recognized as an international community's responsible member rather than be laughed at as the poorest country in the world.
근데 그렇게 하자면 북한의 이제 경제 발전을 그런 방향으로 하는 데 있어서 김정은 위원장의 또 특징이 뭐냐면 과거 김정은의 아버지 김정일 위원장하고 비교해 봤을 때 김정일 위원장은
북한 자체적인 어떤 자력갱생, 주체경제 뭐 이런 쪽으로 그러니까 좀 수준이 낮더라도 스스로 해결하는 쪽에 더 초점을 뒀다면 김정은 위원장은 그런 북한의 경제 발전이 북한에 생산하는 제품의 수준이 세계적 수준이 되지 않으면 안 된다 하는 그런 점을 상당히 강조를 하고 있습니다.
So when it comes to North Korea's economic development policy, there is a huge difference between Chairman Kim Jong-un and his father, Chairman Kim Jong-il. When it comes to Chairman Kim Jong-il's perception, he wanted to have an autonomous development. So even if the quality of life or the quality of the product is low that is produced in North Korea, if it is done autonomously, Chairman Kim Jong-il was satisfied. However, when it comes to Chairman Kim Jong-un, he wants to see his product and his quality of life to be a global standard.
근데 이렇게 김정은 위원장이 추구하는 대로 경제 발전을 하자면 북한은 대외 개방 없이는 그런 경제 발전을 할 수가 없습니다. 근데 저희가 이미 과거 80년대 또 90년대 또 2000년 넘어와서도 동구권이라든가 리비아라든가 그런 나라에서 개방의 경우에 봤듯이 이런 사회주의권, 독재 국가에서 개방은 체제 불안을 야기할 가능성이 굉장히 높습니다.
So in order for Chairman Kim to achieve his goal of having this global standard of production, he needs to open up his economy. But the thing is that the Chairman Kim is also aware that the history tells him that the reform and opening up a socialist economy or socialist government has a possibility of having a regime instability. During 1980s, 90s, and 2000, he has seen how the countries in Eastern European nations have collapsed in terms of its regime style. And countries like Libya has collapsed after opening up.
그러나 북한의 경우에는 그런 다른 그런 나라들, 뭐 리비아라든가 쿠바라든가 베트남이라든가 이런 사회주의권에서 개혁 개방을 한 나라하고 또 다른 그런 상당히 중요한 그런 요소가 있습니다. 그건 무엇이냐하면 북한은 분단 국가라는 점입니다. 만약에 그런 나라들 쿠바라든가 베트남이라든가 다른 나라의 경우에 체제 불안정이 오더라도 그런 나라는 정권 교체라든가 뭐 그 지도자 교체라든가 그런 것으로 끝나지 국가가 소멸되지는 않습니다만 북한의 경우에는 그런 체제 불안정이 왔을 때 북한 자체가 국가 자체가 완전히 소멸될 수 있다. 남쪽에 흡수등을 당할 수 있다 하는 그런 우려를 갖고 있습니다.
And another concern that they have is that unlike countries like Libya, Cuba, or Vietnam, the North Korea is in a special condition as they are a separated country. There is DPRK and the Republic of Korea. So when these countries like Libya and Cuba and Vietnam has economic reform, the worst thing that they can imagine is a regime change. However, as there is a possibility of North Korea failing into under South Korea when the regime collapses, the North Korea itself might disappear. So this is another concern that the DPRK has.
그런 상황에서 북한의 입장에서는 체제의 안정을 확보하는 것이 대단히 중요합니다. 사실 이거는 김정은 위원장 때만 제시되는 건 아니고 과거에 북한 핵 문제가 1992년에 제기된 이후에 계속해서 여러 차례 북한 핵 문제를 해결하는 그런 과정에서 뭐 양자 또는 4자, 6자 여러 다자 차원의 회담에서 계속해서 북한이 제기해왔던 체제의 안정 문제는 제기해왔던 문제이기도 합니다.
However, this issue is not only made by Chairman Kim Jong-un, but this issue has been discussed since early 1992. So whenever this North Korea comes up with a discussion table for North Korea's nuclear crisis, they talk about this regime safety and regime stability. Whenever we have the bilateral discussion, 4-party talks or 6-party talks, this was an issue.
그러나 그런 그 체제 안정의 어떤 필요성을 느끼는 정도가 과거 김정일 때보다 김정은 위원장은 훨씬 더 강하다고 볼 수가 있고 그런 체제 안정을 이 협상 테이블 위에 올려놓고 제대로 그 북한 입장에서는 그 체제 안정을 위협할 수 있다고 생각하는 미국이라든가 한국이라든가 이런 데와 협상을 하고자 시도를 했습니다만 어쨌든 그러한 것이 이번에 처음으로 사실상 테이블 위에 의제로 올라왔다고 볼 수가 있습니다.
So for the past decades, North Korea has tried to bring this issue up to the table of discussion, but they weren't really not that passionate about this. But when it comes to Chairman Kim Jong-un, he really recognized the importance of having a regime security as one of their priority. So they're trying to have this as one of the agenda items for discussion when it comes to engagement with the U.S. and the Republic of Korea. So that is why this actually have become an agenda item for a discussion and bargain.
예, 그런 점에서 지금 현재 그래서 북한은 그 우리 미국이나 국제사회가 북한에 요구하고 있는 북한의
비핵화, 핵 문제 해결과 또 북한이 지금 제기하고 있는 체제 안정 두 가지를 양쪽이 이제 추구하는 그런 목표로 두고서 이제 협상을 지금 시작하게 된 것입니다.
So under this background, we now have the U.S. and the international society demanding a denuclearization of North Korea, and North Korea demanding a regime security.
조금 전에 말씀드린 것처럼 어쨌든 그렇게 두 가지가 협상 테이블에 같이 이렇게 올라온 것은 사실상 처음입니다. 그 동안에도 얘기는 됐습니다만 의제로서 올라온 것은 지금이 사실상 처음이다 이렇게 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다.
So having these two agenda items on the table of discussion is the first time that you've seen in the inter-Korean dialogue or the bilateral discussion or multilateral discussion.
물론 그 다음 단계에 가서 이제 북한이 이런 체제 안정을 우리가 미국이나 국제사회가 어떻게 보장해 줄 것인가, 또 북한은 핵을 빨리 포기할 것인가, 아니면 최대한 천천히 포기하면서 체제 보장이라든가 다른 반대급부만 더 챙기는 데 주력할 것인가, 또는 경우에 따라서는 끝까지 핵을 일부라도 남겨두려고 할 것인가, 여러 가지 가능성들이 아직은 남아있는 상태입니다.
However, the method on how this discussion will be proceed will be a difficult question to answer. So when it comes to the North Korea's regime safety, we need to see how that they want to ensure the safety of their regime. And at the same time, another question that we have is, will North Korea ever try to have a denuclearization? Or if they were to have a denuclearization, will it happen soon or will it happen till later? Or if the North Korea is willing to hold on to their nuclear weapon until the very last minute. So there's a lot of issues that we have to discuss and see.
그런 것들은 앞으로 협상을 통해서 해결해 나가야 되는 과제로 저희가 풀어나가야 되겠습니다만, 어쨌든 지금 북한의 김정은 위원장은 그러한 본인이 추구하고자 하는 체제 안정이라든가 다른 반대급부가 보장이 된다면 핵을 포기하면서라도 그런 것을 얻어내겠다고 하는 의지가 과거보다는 훨씬 강하다 이렇게 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다.
Of course, we will be able to answer these questions through the negotiation that we have with North Korea. But one thing that I would like to stress and highlight once again is that Kim Jong-un has a willingness to give up his nuclear weapon if he can achieve regime safety and his economic development. His will and passion is different from the previous leaders in North Korea.
예, 그런 것을 해 나가는 과정에 있어서 어쨌든 김정은 위원장이 결국 궁극적으로 추구하는 것은 앞에 얘기로 돌아가서 이러한 협상을 통해서 체제 안정을 보장받고 경제 건설을 하고 그래서 북한을 제대로 된 나라로 만들어야 되겠다라는 그런 것을 김정은 위원장은 목표로 하면서 지금 이런 비핵화 문제 미국과의 협상에 임하고 있다고 볼 수 있겠습니다.
So ultimately, Chairman Kim Jong-un wants to see a normalized North Korea. So through this negotiation process and denuclearization process, he wants to achieve a regime security, at the same time an economic development.
이런 과정에서 그러면 남북 관계, 미국과 북한 간의 관계는 어떤 식으로 서로 협력하고 조화를 이루어 나갈 수 있을까 하는 거 저희가 생각해 볼 수 있을 것 같습니다.
So next question that I would like to address is how North inter-Korean relationship can contribute to the U.S. DPRK process on North denuclearization.
우리 앞에서도 제가 연설에서 말씀드린 것처럼 기본적으로 남한과 북한은, 한국과 북한은 서로 원래 하나였던 나라였고 하나의 언어를 쓰고 하나의 문화를 갖고 있고 우리가 다시 하나가 되고자 하는 것은 자연스럽습니다. 그리고 남북한 간에는 이산가족 문제라든가 여러 가지 남북한 간에 다른 나라에서 이렇게 느낄 수 없는 특수한 여러 가지 남북한 관계가 있습니다.
And as I mentioned during my keynote speech, two Koreas are in a unique relationship, something that cannot be witnessed in any other country in the world. We used to be one country. We used to have the same language and culture. And it is only natural for us to always dream of a unification. And we have special concerns like the separate family reunion.
그리고 남북한 간에는 이미 개성공단과 같은 남북한 간의 경협을 통해서 북한이 대외 개방을 하고 경제 협력을 하는 것과 관련해서 이미 과거에 진행을 했던 경험을 갖고 있습니다.
And also we have an experience of having a Kaesong industrial complex, an economic cooperation between two Koreas, and in anticipation and an attempt to open up North Korean economy.
여기서 한번 제가 좀 짚고 넘어가고 싶은 것은 이 개성공단 얘기만 하게 되면 개성공단을 꼭 재개할 거 아니냐. 해서 많은 우려를 하는데 지금 결코 개성공단을 지금 재개하겠다는 얘기가 아닙니다.
So one thing that I like to make clear is that when I talk about this Kaesong Industrial Complex, there is a lot of questions of whether we are all going to open up Kaesong Industrial Complex soon. But one thing that I would like to highlight here is that we are not going to open up Kaesong Industrial Complex soon.
우리 한국 정부가 지금 남북 관계를 말씀드린 것처럼 그런 남북 관계의 특수한 상황에서 올해 들어서 많이 진행을 하고 있습니다만 경제 협력, 본격적인 경제 협력은 그것은 앞으로 북한 핵 문제가 확실하게 해결되고 제재가 해제된 다음에 가능하다라는 분명한 입장을 갖고 있습니다.
So the South Korean government has a very strong principle that the inter-Korean economic cooperation will only happen and start once the denuclearization of North Korea happens.
그러면서 또 남북한 간의 이런 대화라든가 교류 과정에 북한이 추구하고자 하는 경제 발전, 대외 개방을 위해서는 핵 문제가 해결돼야 된다는 점을 북한에다가 계속해서 반복해서 강조를 하고 있습니다.
So we constantly highlight the importance of North Korea to give up its nuclear weapon if they want to have an economic development and open up their economy.
그리고 지금 현재 북한에 가해지고 있는 유엔 차원의 또 독자적인 차원의 대북 제재를 준수하면서 남북한 간의 교류 협력을 진행을 하고 있습니다.
So all the inter-Korean cooperation and coordination at this point is happening based on the principle and the agreements we have made under the United Nations Security Council sanctions.
말하자면 한국과 미국은 같은 목표를 향해서 같이 보조를 맞추면서 가고 있습니다.
So we can say that the Korea and the United States is on the same page to achieve a same goal.
그러나 올해 여러 가지 일들이 남북한 관계에서 그동안 중단됐다가 다시 재개가 되고 또 남북관계 특수성 때문에 이런 이산가족이라든가 사회문화 교류라든가 서로 왕래하는 것이 계속해서 이어지다 보니까 남북관계가 굉장히 빠르게 훨씬 더 앞서 나간다라는 그런 식으로 비춰질 수 있다는 것도 분명한 사실입니다.
But at the same time, we do understand the criticism coming from our side, stating that the inter-Korean relationships path of development is going a little bit faster than all the other processes that is happening between U.S. and DPRK. But one thing that I want to highlight is that we are in a special relationship with North Korea. All the projects that we have, like the separate family reunion or the social culture exchange, was something that we used to have before. We just have restarted them after 10 years of stopping them. That is why it might be seen as something that is happening way faster.
그러나 이러한 진행되고 있는 남북관계가 기본적으로 북한 핵 문제를 해결하는 데 기여하는 방향으로 추진되어야 한다. 그리고 북한 핵 문제가 해결될 때까지 대북 제재는 계속해서 유지가 되어야 한다. 그리고 이런 것을 위해서 한국과 미국 간에는 긴밀하게 협력해 나가야 한다. 그런 원칙은 지금 분명하게 한미 양국 간에 긴밀하게 소통하면서 지켜져 나가고 있다고 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다.
Even when we have all the projects with North Korea, the ROC and the U.S. is having extremely close coordination to make sure all the projects that we are doing with North Korea abide by the principle of sanction and at the same time contribute to the denuclearization process.
하나 더 뭐 약간 그 에피소드 비슷하게 말씀드리자면 우리 북한하고 우리가 어떤 본격적인 경협을 하려면 한국 기업들이 참여해야 되고 한국 금융기관들이 투자를 하고 그래야 되는데 이런 제재하에서 한국 기업이나 금융기관들이 북한과 그런 사업을 하거나 금융기관이 투자를 하거나 할 가능성은 전혀 없습니다.
So one episode that we like to share is that if we were to have an actual economic cooperation between two Koreas, we need to have an investment coming from the Korean companies or financial institution. But until we have the sanctions to be lifted, this will not happen.
비핵화가 진전되고 제재가 해제돼야만 가능한 일입니다.
So in summary, we can only have them when the denuclearization happens and the sanctions are being lifted.
Can I just ask quickly if the peace declaration or the end of war declaration that has been under discussion between the two Korean leaders, is that still something that the two leaders plan to declare by the end of the year? And has Chairman Kim clarified what he would get out of that? What kind of sense of security would that offer him? And how would that help him in terms of his domestic audience?
지금 올해 정전 선언을 하겠다라고 이제 양국의 이제 대통령께서 그리고 이제 김정은 위원장이 합의를 하셨는데요. 올해 내로 이 협상이 완료가 되고 이제 올해 내로 종전 선언을 할 수 있을지요. 그리고 정전 선언이 된다면은 김정은 위원장은 이를 통해 어떠한 안보 보장을 얻을 수 있을지 궁금합니다.
예, 그 종전 선언을 올해 안에 한다는 합의 사항은 역시 이것도 합의된 것이고 또 지금 현재 여전히 가능하고 또 필요하다 이렇게 아까 김정은 위원장의 서울 답방과 같은 그런 맥락에서 우선 간단하게 먼저 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다.
So first of all, the end of war declaration is something that we have agreed upon and something that is possible and something that is needed.
저희가 보통 이제 그 북한의 어떤 비핵화 또 비핵화를 위한 여러 가지 실천적 조치와 관련해서 북한의 김정은 위원장이 1인 지배 체제이기 때문에 김정은 위원장이 맘만 먹으면 뭐 상당히 아주 굉장히 그 빠르게 굉장히 그 중요한 그런 조치들을 취할 수 있을 것이다라고 생각을 보통 합니다.
So normally, when people think about denuclearization, as North Korea is run by Chairman Kim by himself, some people think that the Chairman Kim's will is the most important thing when it comes to denuclearization.
그러나 과거 김정일 위원장 때도 그랬고 지금 김정은 위원장 때도 저희가 직접 정상회담이나 다른 계기에 만나면서 보게 되면 그 김정일 위원장 또 김정은 위원장과 바로 그 밑에 있는 북한의 고위층의 지도층하고도 또 입장이 상당히 많이 다른 점들이 있습니다.
But something that we have learned from the meeting with North Korea's chairman, like Chairman Kim Jong-il and Chairman Kim Jong-un, is that even if these leaders have their own opinion, the highest level officers within North Korea, just above these chairmen, might have different opinion.
말하자면 그 김정은 위원장이 어떤 것을 하려고 하더라도 그것이 그대로 밑에서 그대로 따르고 물론 기본적인 방향은 그 지시대로 움직이겠습니다만 구체적인 내용을 이행하는 데 있어서는 분위기가 상당히 많이 다를 수가 있습니다.
So even when Chairman Kim Jong-un asks his highest level officers to implement something, of course his officers will try to implement them, but the feeling that they have about this implementation of a specific policy might be different from Chairman Kim.
그리고 북한은 최근 몇 년 동안 집중적으로 핵무기를 개발해 오면서 북한의 그 주민들의 경제, 삶 이거를 희생하면서 핵무기를 개발을 해왔습니다.
And for the past few years, North Korea have dedicated too much effort to develop a nuclear weapon, and in return, they had to sacrifice certain level of economic development that the people in North Korea used to enjoy.
그렇게 개발한 핵무기를 포기하겠다, 비핵화를 하겠다라는 것을 김정은 위원장이 추진해 나가는 데는 뭔가 명분이 필요합니다.
So in order for Chairman Kim to push for denuclearization, he needed legitimacy.
그리고 과거에 북한이 이런 비핵화 협상 또 남북한 간의 여러 가지 정상회담이든 협상 또 다른 개방을 했을 때 지금까지는 대부분 그런 것들이 결과가 이렇게 성공적이지 못하게 끝났고 그런 경우에 누군가는 북한 내에서 누군가는 그 일을 추진했던 사람들이 또 책임을 져야 되는 그런 문제들이 있었습니다.
And some of the things that we've learned from the past experience is that whenever we have an inter-Korean cooperation, if some of the project that we have planned goes to failure, someone within North Korea had to be responsible for that failure.
그런 상황에서 김정은 위원장은 본인이 그 비핵화를 계속해서 추진해 나갈 수 있는 명분이 필요한 것이고 또 경제 건설 쪽으로 보다 많은 사람들을 투입하고 자재를 투입해 나가고 할 수 있는 그런 명분이 필요한 것입니다.
So under this circumstance, Chairman Kim Jong-un needs a legitimacy to put more efforts for economic development.
북한의 경우에 여러분들이 다 아시는 것처럼 한미 군사 훈련을 굉장히 강하게 그동안 중단을 요구를 해왔었습니다.
And as you know, the North Korea has constantly demanded us to stop the ROK-US combined exercises and trainings.
대개 한미 군사 훈련이 봄에 2월 달부터 4월 달 사이에 그리고 8월 달, 9월 달에 이렇게 훈련이 실시가 되는데 그 시기는 우리 한국도 마찬가지입니다만 북한도 농촌이 굉장히 바쁜 시기고 그 시기에 북한은 많은 인력들이 군인뿐만 아니라 당 간부들까지도 농촌에 가서 그 농촌 일들을 도와줘야 됩니다.
So during this combined exercise period between February to April and August to September, this is one of the most busiest seasons in North Korea, also in South Korea. In case of North Korea, when this season comes, they have to put all the efforts for agricultural cultivation. And then sometimes even the party officials have to go to the farm and help the people there.
그러나 그때의 한미 군사 훈련이 벌어지게 되면 북한은 최고 수준의 높은 수준의 군사 경계를 해야 되고 그런 군사 경계를 하게 되면 그런 그 군사 병력이라든가 뭐 공장에 있는 사람들이라든가 그런 사람들이 다 총 들고 그 자리를 지켜야 됩니다.
So whenever we have the ROK-US combined exercise or training, the North Koreans will have the highest alert within their country to make sure that they have readiness posture against possible invasion coming from the south. So in that sense, what happens is that North Korean military officers have to be on position with their guns and everything, and also the people who are working in the factory or farms have to have their weapons and to be prepared for a possible contingency.
어쨌든 그런 북한 상황에서 뭔가 비핵화를 한다, 뭔가 미국과 협상을 한다, 한국과 협상을 한다 할 때 김정은 위원장 입장에서도 그런 걸 해도 괜찮다, 그런 걸 해서 풀어나갈 수 있다라고 하는 그런 명분이 있어야 북한에서 그 바로 밑에 최고위 그런 지도층들이 김정은의 그런 거에 맞춰서 같이 움직일 수 있게 됩니다.
So North Korea's denuclearization is something that is really related to their security. But in that sense, if Kim Jong-un can provide a strong legitimacy to persuade these high-level officers that their regime will be secured even without having a nuclear weapon, this negotiation process between U.S. and Iraq will go much more smoother. That is why we want to provide legitimacy for him.
예, 종전선언도 그러한 북한 김정은 위원장 입장에서 우리가 비핵화 협상을 미국과 해나가고 또 한국과 여러 가지 정상회담을 하고 하는 그런 것의 어떤 명분을 확보하는 그런 측면의 의미가 가장 강하다고 봅니다.
So the end of war declaration is a political symbol that gives Chairman Kim Jong-un a legitimacy to engage in a discussion with the U.S. for denuclearization and work with South Korea for inter-Korean dialogues.
종전선언은 다 아시는 것처럼 평화협정하고는 완전히 다른 차원입니다.
And as you know, the end of war declaration will be different from the peace treaty.
종전선언은 사실상 정치적 선언이고 그 선언이 종전선언이 됐다 그래서 한미동맹이라든가 주한미군이라든가 뭐 그런 것에 있어서 어떤 변화를 바로 초래하는 것은 전혀 없습니다.
So therefore, even if we have the end of war declaration, which is a political declaration without having a framed agreement, we will still have the U.S. Force Korea stationed in South Korea, and the ROK-US alliance will stay as a rock-solid alliance.
그러나 좀 전에 설명드린 것처럼 김정은 위원장 입장에서는 뭔가 본인이 추구하는, 본인이 하고자 하는 그런 것으로 나가는 쪽에 명분을 확보하는 측면에서 종전선언이 상당히 중요한 것이고 그러한 측면에서 계속해서 종전선언을 필요로 하고 있고 그래서 그런 우리가 북한의 비핵화, 김정은 위원장이 보다 더 진전된 그런 비핵화 조치를 취하게 추동하기 위한 측면에서도 종전선언은 필요하다 이렇게 보고 있습니다. 그리고 종전선언이 말씀드린 대로 하나의 정치적 선언이고 그 자체가 어떤 변화를 가져오는 것이 아니기 때문에 그 종전선언은 여러 가지 방법으로 체결할 수가 있다라고 생각을 합니다. 그런 차원에서 종전선언 문제를 계속해서 한국, 북한, 미국 그리고 중국도 상당히 관심을 보이고 이렇게 관련되는 국가 간에 협의하면서 풀어나가려고 하고 있습니다.
So that is why by having this end of war declaration, Chairman Kim Jong-un will have a stronger legitimacy to push for actual action for denuclearization, which will bring a breakthrough within the negotiation process for denuclearization. So this political declaration will not make a significant change in terms of reality, but this legitimacy provided will do so. So there's a lot of countries like China who are interested in the end of war declaration, and there's a lot of different ways where we can have an end of war declaration. So that is why we're continuously pushing forward having this end of war declaration.
Do we have another question? Okay, let's see. There's a woman here in the black blazer. Right here? Yeah.
네, 감동적인 말씀 감사합니다. 저는 김민정이라고 하고요. 언론사 미래한국에서 일하고 있고 지금은 조지타운의 연구원으로 나와 있습니다. 시간이 별로 없어서 짧게 말씀을 여쭤보면 이제 북한 평양의 변화에 대해서 말씀을 해주셨는데요. 그거에 대해서 두 가지, 첫 번째 정권의 변화와 그리고 두 번째 주민들과 탈북자의 인식의 변화에 대해서 질문을 드리고 싶습니다. 첫 번째 정권에 대해서는 물론 말씀하신 대로 명분이 필요하겠지만 바로 이틀 전에 자유아시아 방송에서는 북한에서 정치 학습을 할 때 아직까지도 북한핵을 절대 포기하지 않을 거라는 것을 가장 강조하고 있습니다. 그리고 평안북도에선 아직까지 전 인민의 무장화 그리고 전 국토의 요새화를 아직까지 주장을 하고 있는데요. 물론 시간이 필요하겠지만 김정은 정권이 말을 신뢰할 수 있는지 첫 번째 질문이고요. 그리고 두 번째는 북한 주민들이 기대를 갖고 있다고 아까 탈북자분들의 말씀을 통해서 말씀하셨는데 제가 알기로 문재인 정권이 들어서기 바로 전에 일부의 탈북자들이 문재인 후보 지지 선언을 한 걸로 알고 있습니다. 근데 제가 20년 동안 북한 인권단체에서 일을 같이 해오고 있는데 제가 알고 있는 여러 명의 탈북자가 그 자리에 있었고 그 자리에서 간접적으로 상당한 금액의 재정 지원을 받았다고 제가 들었습니다. 혹시 그 말이 그분들을 통해서 나왔다면 약간 바이어스가 있지 않을까 생각이 됩니다. 왜냐하면 제가 지금까지 일하면서 같이 알아온 탈북자들은 고위층에서 오신 분들 많은데요. 그분들은 지금 신변의 위협을 느끼고 있습니다. 그리고 저희가 개인적으로 그분들을 만나서 미국에 있는 모 기관에서 한 몇 년 동안 지낼 것을 제가 적극적으로 권유를 하고 있는 상태입니다. 그래서 이분들의 말이 진심인지 그 두 가지를 여쭤보고 싶습니다. 감사합니다.
So I would like to briefly summarize the question that has been just raised. There's two questions regarding the perception that we have from the Pyongyang. The first is whether the government in Pyongyang is actually trying to change its mind. Although there is a legitimacy that can be provided to Pyongyang's government even when we have an end of war declaration, in case of North Korea, they still have a propaganda activity within them stating that nuclear weapon is something that is protecting their country. At the same time, some of the propaganda still states that the country itself must be armed and be prepared for defense. At the same time, there is a concern when it comes to North Korean citizens and the refugees that we have in South Korea. When there was some refugees that have declared their support for President Moon Jae-in during the election campaign, some of them has been suspicious in receiving some financial support from the Moon Jae-in administration's camp. So if the refugees are showing their support for President Moon at this point are the ones who have used to show their support during the presidential election campaign, that they might have certain level of bias toward the Moon Jae-in government's policy. Because some of the refugees that I personally have met have shown the threat that he's currently going through as he was coming from the high-level officer from North Korea. So in this context, so what kind of things should we trust?
예, 북한의 변화와 관련해서 이렇게 구체적인 또 사례도 들어서 이렇게 말씀을 해주셨는데 또 탈북민들도 많이 만나신다고 하니까 또 탈북민을 통해서도 많이 또 내용을 들으실 테고 할 텐데 저는 우리 한국 사회의 변화를 한번 우리가 돌이켜 보면 북한의 변화도 한번 짐작해 볼 수 있지 않을까 이렇게 생각을 해봅니다.
So thank you very much for your comment. I think you had a lot of specific context and examples. At the same time, you've been talking to refugees a lot. So when we talk about the changes that we see in North Korea, I first like to go over to some of the changes that we had within the South Korean society first.
우리 한국 사회에서도 아직까지도 여전히 북한에 대해서 부정적인 인식이 상당히 강하게 남아 있고 합니다만 어쨌든 한국에서 북한에 대해서 갖고 있는 인식, 북한에 대한 대북 정책에 대한 그런 인식을 보게 되면 대체로 80년대 후반, 90년대를 전후로 해서 이렇게 변화가 되었다고 생각이 됩니다. 근데 실제로 우리가 과거에는 우리 한국에서 북한을 북괴라고 불렀습니다. 북한이 남쪽을 남조선 괴뢰라고 지금도 부르고 있듯이 불렀는데 80년대 후반서부터 90년대 북한에 대한 변화가 인식 변화가 굉장히 빠르게 일어나면서도 90년대 중반 거의 후반까지도 많은 분들은 북괴라고 표현을 썼고 북한에 대해서 굉장히 우리가 호전적인 적대적인 공격적인 그런 구호들을 우리 사회에서 계속해서 썼었습니다.
So inside South Korea, although we have some changed perception toward North Korea, there are still people who are going against North Korea and South Korean government policy toward North Korea. So something that we see from the case in South Korea is that our North Korean policy has dramatically changed in the late 80s and early 90s. And even during that time, there was wordings that South Korean people use called 북괴, which is similar to the North Korean commies. So these wordings has been used until the late 90s. So even if we have a good relationship and friendly atmosphere happening between two Koreas, the hostility and the aggression still stay domestically.
그러나 2000년대에 넘어오면서 또 지금에 와서는 여전히 북한에 대한 부정적 인식은 강하게 남아 있습니다만 어떤 북한에 대해서 우리가 공격적인 그런 적대적인 그런 것은 우리 사회에서 상당히 많이 이제 줄어들었습니다.
However, as things has progressed, and when it comes to early 2000, although still there is an aggression or hostility that is remaining within the minds of the South Korean people, the level of aggression that we used to have has significantly decreased.
물론 정부 차원에서도 북한에 대해서 2000년 뭐 정상회담을 하고 햇볕 정책을 하고 평화 번영 정책으로 이런 화해 협력으로 나가는 정책을 본격적으로 추진해 나왔고요.
And also, of course, the South Korean government has constantly pushed for this sunshine policy, reconciliation policy, as well as the inter-Korean summits.
어떤 그런 변화에는 과도기가 있고 어떤 과정이 좀 필요한 것 같습니다.
And of course, whenever we have a change, there is a transition period.
그러니까 어떤 것은 일부 과거의 것이 계속 지속되면서 새로운 것이 또 계속 등장하게 되고 두 개가 혼재하면서 어떤 변화로 가는 것이죠.
And during this transition period, the remains of the past will remain at a certain level, and new things will pop up as well. They will stay as mixed in a mixture of as a mixture during this transition period.
과거의 것이 그대로 남아 있다 그래서 지금 변화하지 않는 것이다라고 얘기하는 것은 또 아닐 것입니다.
So just because we have a remains of the past, that does not mean that we do not see a change.
그리고 우리가 좀 더 초점을 두고 지켜보고 해야 될 것은 그런 변화하는 부분을 좀 더 초점을 두고 보고 그것이 계속해서 지속되고 확산되도록 하는데 초점을 두고 보는 것이 더 중요하다고 생각을 합니다.
So I think it is important for us to focus on the changes that we see and try to make sure these changes are being sustained and these changes are spread over.
그리고 김정은 위원장의 어떤 말을 신뢰하느냐 하는 것에 상당히 중요한 부분이지만 그것도 역시 말을 신뢰하느냐 안 하느냐를 우리가 두고서 어떤 정책을 결정하고 협상을 하고 하는 그런 쪽으로 초점을 맞출 문제는 아니라고 생각을 합니다.
So when it comes to questions like do we trust Chairman Kim, I don't think we should focus on this question when it comes to actual negotiation.
많은 전문가들은 아까 좀 전에 말씀드렸던 종전선언과 관련해서 북한은 종전선언을 하고 나면 그걸 근거로 주한미군 철수를 주장할 것이고 유엔사 해체를 더 강하게 주장할 것이고 그런 식으로 해서 어떤 남한의 그런 그 한미 동맹을 약화시켜서 북한의 어떤 유리한 환경을 조성하려는 노력을 더 강화할 것이다라고 많은 지적을 전문가들이 제기하는 것을 알고 있습니다.
So many experts are raising concern that the end of war declaration will lead North Korea to demand a withdrawal of the U.S. Force Korea as well as the United Nations Command.
그러나 중요한 것은 어쨌든 김정은 위원장이 여러 가지 의도를 갖고 추구하겠지만 그 중에서 우리가 북한의 비핵화를 해결하기 위해서 남북관계를 발전시켜 나가기 위해서 필요한 요소들을 우리가 찾아내고 그것을 최대한 활용해 나가고 또 우리가 이렇게 우려하는 부분들은 그런 것이 현실화되지 않도록 잘 대비해 나가고 하는 노력을 동시에 기울여 나가는 것이 중요하다고 생각을 합니다.
So under this situation, when we have the critics like that, when we engage with Chairman Kim, we will try our best to make sure that we identify his intention and will. And when we engage in a negotiation for a denuclearization process, we will identify an area where we can actually exploit. At the same time, make sure that we make a good preparation for the possible contingency or possible demand that is unacceptable for us.
그리고 탈북민들과 관련해서는 탈북민들이 지금 현재 문재인 정부가 들어선 다음에 또 올해 남북관계가 굉장히 빠르게 개선이 되면서 두 가지 측면을 느끼고 있는 것 같습니다.
And in case of refugees, I think these refugees have divided feeling after Moon Jae-in administration policy on North Korea.
한 측면은 지금 말씀하신 것처럼 탈북민들이 상당히 과거보다 힘들어졌다. 남쪽 사회, 한국 사회에서 힘들어졌다. 또 일부 고위층 분들 같은 경우는 뭐 신변의 위협까지도 느낀다 하는 그런 얘기들이 많이 나오고 있는 걸 잘 알고 있습니다.
And we are currently well aware of the refugees going through some difficult time in South Korea after this North Korean policy. And also we are aware that some of the refugees coming from the high-level officer from North Korea were also being threatened.
또 다른 한편으로는 우리 탈북민들이 가장 희망하는 것이 무엇이냐고 물어보면 고향에 지금은 전혀 북한에 갈 수가 없습니다. 근데 고향에 떳떳하게 아무런 위협을 느끼지 않고 고향에 방문해서 자기 가족들을 다시 만나고 거기에서 잘 이렇게 가족들과 사는 것을 희망을 하는데 이런 남북관계가 개선되면 그런 시기가 빨리 올 수 있지 않을까 하는 측면에서 또 많은 기대를 갖고 있는 것도 사실입니다.
And on the other hand, many of the refugees are hopeful that one day they might be able to visit their home once again, to proudly go into their country without a threat and live there with their family.
그러나 앞에 탈북민들이 가는 우려는 상당 부분 좀 오해와 왜곡된 부분들이 대부분입니다.
When it comes to the difficulties that South Korea's refugees are going through, I think are mostly a little bit different from what's actually happening compared to the reality.
좀 너무 구체적인 설명이 될지 모르겠습니다만 지금 현재 한국에 들어오는 탈북민들 숫자가 많이 줄었습니다.
This might be too much of a detail, but the number of refugees coming to South Korea has been decreased significantly.
그래서 탈북민들에게 한국에 오게 되면 우리 정부가 여러 가지 지원을 해주는데 그런 지원 예산이 매년 많이 남아서 그 남는 부분을 내년 예산에서는 조금 많이 줄였습니다.
So when it comes to the budget that we have in the South Korean government to support the refugees, as there is a decreased number of refugees coming to South Korea, we have a budget that are still remaining, and then therefore we had to reduce the budget going into the refugees to be reduced for next year's budget.
그러나 그것은 전체 숫자가 줄었기 때문에 그 지원 금액 총액 자체가 줄은 것이지 한 분 한 분 개인에게 돌아가는 지원 금액은 오히려 더 부분적으로 늘어났습니다.
But the thing is that although the absolute amount of the budget that we have for the refugees have decreased, there's more allocation to each of the refugees living in South Korea.
근데 많은 분들은 전체 금액이 줄어들었기 때문에 탈북민에 대한 지원이 줄어들었다. 그렇게만 평가하고 문제를 제기하는 분들이 많이 있습니다.
But there are some criticisms stating that since the absolute amount of the budget has been decreased, there's less support going into the refugees. So I think this is one of the misunderstandings we are going through.
그리고 탈북민 중에 고위층 같은 분들 같은 경우에 과거보다는 활동하기가 좀 어려워진 것은 사실입니다.
And of course, the high-level officers, we do realize that they are going through some of the difficulties as their activities has been shrinked.
아까 김정은 위원장 서울 방문과 관련해서 남쪽에서는 그거 반대하는 사람들이 있고 또 그걸 환영하는 사람이 있다고 하듯이 그런 탈북민들이 와서 고위층들이 활동과 관련해서 찬성하는 분들이 있고 반대하는 부분들이 있는데 지금 반대하는 부분이 과거보다 더 우리 시민들 사이에서 좀 더 과거보다 더 많이 생긴 것은 사실입니다.
And when I talked about Chairman Kim's visit to Seoul, I talked about there might be some people who are going against him when it comes to Chairman Kim visiting Seoul, and there will be some people who are supporting them. Likewise, there are some opposition to the refugees, to the people within South Korea that does not want to see the refugees having an active action in South Korea. And of course, there are supporters. But the number of the people who are going against these refugees' activities has increased recent years.
그리고 그런 반대하는 사람들 중에는 그런 탈북민들에 대해서 어떤 뭐 SNS라든가 이런 걸 통해서 소셜 미디어를 통해 가지고 위협적인 뭐 카톡을 보낸다든지 SNS 그런 걸 보내기도 합니다.
So sometimes we have this opposition sending wrong messages, threatening them through their SNS or like personal messages.
그렇기 때문에 정부는 그분들 신변 보호를 위해 더 노력을 하고 있고요. 실제로 그분들한테 어떤 위협이 이렇게 가해지거나 하는 그런 가능성은 한국에서 잘 아십니다만 한국은 가장 안전한 사회고 그럴 일은 없습니다.
And as these oppositions are sending these messages of threat to these defectors and refugees, the South Korean government is putting in extra careful measures to make sure that these people are being protected. And as you know, South Korea is one of the safest countries in the world. We'll make sure that they're not going to be threatened or be harmed.
So I would like to thank Minister Cho for his openness and his accessibility today. I think he has certainly provided quite a bit more insight and personal experience than I had even expected, so I appreciate that. Now, a couple things that I wanted to mention. I would like for all of today's participants to join me on the stage. We're going to take a couple photographs. For the rest of you, please join us for lunch just across the way in the dining room. And we will be joined by Ambassador An Ho-young, who is a former ambassador to the United States, now president of the University of North Korea, and he will be introducing Mark Knapper. So we've got from the State Department, so we've got two veteran diplomats from the United States and North Korea. I hope we get a good discussion out of that. So please join us for that. And then afterward, we will have a panel discussion with some leading experts from South Korea and the United States, including Ambassador Jo Yoon, where we will pick apart some of these issues that we've discussed, including that end of war declaration, as well as sanctions, denuclearization, whether North Korea is developing its missile program, all of these thorny issues that we perhaps weren't able to get into today. So please join us. Thank you.